The chamber of extinction smelled like species that no longer existed. Old paper, dry ozone, something sweet and rotten underneath. High Arbitrator Vexar sat at the center of the curved bench. His stone-gray face did not move. Behind him, arranged in descending tiers, sat the representatives of 47 species. Above them all, alone in the highest row, Observer Velsath watched in silence. The species designated humanity has not been contacted in 312 standard years, Vexar read from the scroll. No ships, no transmissions, no colonies detected within Council space. Under Article 19 of the Tribunal Charter, I move for extinction certification. The vote was 41 in favor, 6 opposed. It is done, Vexar said. Humanity is declared extinct. The Enforcement Armada will sweep their former territories and catalog remaining assets. Observer Velsath wrote a single word on her data slate. Wait. She watched the Armada assemble over the next 3 days, 347 warships, 40,000 ground troops. Tactician Kalen, a young officer with a nervous jaw tick, gave the order to advance into the empty space that had once held human colonies. Velsath wrote nothing else. She waited. The message arrived 3 hours after the Armada crossed the Sol system's outer boundary. It was 4 seconds long. The screen in the chamber flickered. A woman's face filled it, gray hair, stiff scarred fingers wrapped around a chipped ceramic mug, cold black tea still steaming inside. She looked like someone's grandmother who had wandered into the wrong room by accident. She spoke exactly 4 words. Extinction confirmation complete, awaiting next order. The screen went dark. High Arbitrator Vexar did not speak. He stared at the blank screen where the Armada's telemetry used to be. His 212 previous extinction certifications had been correct. He had never been wrong. He was wrong now. Velsath watched the recording 3 times. The first time she wrote nothing. The second time she wrote irony. The third time she erased it and wrote correction. Vexar opened his mouth to speak. He closed it. There was nothing to say. The law was clear. Article 19, Section 4, extinction certifications require physical confirmation by a representative of the certified species if such representatives exist. Humanity had provided confirmation. The tribunal could not try again, 1 certification per species. Those were the rules. Vexar had written the rules himself, 11,000 years ago. Velsath looked at him. He had not moved in 3 hours. She wondered if he ever would. 80 years earlier. The woman with the chipped mug was not a grandmother yet. She was 42 years old, and her name was Helena Voss, and she was standing on a hidden shipyard behind a brown dwarf star that had no name on any tribunal chart. The star was called Glesk 9 by the humans who built the shipyard, 14 light years from the nearest trade route. No one had ever visited it. No one had ever had a reason to. Chief Marcus Webb was welding a hull plate when the alert came through. He had been waiting for this signal for 31 years. He set down the torch. He pulled off his helmet. He keyed the fleet-wide channel. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, the Ghost Fleet sails at dawn. There were 12 ships. They had been built in absolute secrecy over 80 years, each one named for a human world the tribunal had never bothered to visit. The Last Witness, the Silent Dusk, the Unforgotten, 9 more names that meant nothing to anyone outside the small circle of people who had built them. Each ship carried a single weapon system. A mass driver that fired slugs of depleted uranium at 0.07 times the speed of light. 14 metric tons per slug, 21,000 kilometers per second. They had never been tested in combat. Voss stood on the observation deck of the Last Witness. Her gray hair had been brown then. Her fingers had not yet been scarred by the reactor fire that would kill 12 crew members 6 years later. But the mug was already old, 23 years old, a wedding gift from her late husband who had been dead for 19 years. She set down the mug, chipped, blue glaze worn thin on the rim, and turned to Commander Reyes. Wake the Requiem Protocol. Reyes paused. He had heard that phrase once before in training 18 years ago. He had assumed it was a contingency, something they would never actually use. Ma'am, he said slowly, that protocol has never been activated. Then it's time. The Requiem Protocol was not a weapon system. It was a standing order written 80 years ago by the first generation of humans who understood what the tribunal might one day do. The text was simple. Voss had memorized it 20 years ago when she first took command of the Ghost Fleet. If any governing body declares humanity extinct, Earth Defense Command will provide confirmation. 1 ship per extinction vote, no more, no less. She had read it to Reyes once during a long night shift when neither of them could sleep. He had asked if it was a joke. No, she had said, it's a receipt. Now, 80 years after the order was written, the tribunal had finally issued the invoice. Reyes ran the numbers. The Armada had 347 ships. The Ghost Fleet had 12. Each Ghost ship could fire once every 2 minutes. The mass drivers needed time to cool between shots. The stealth coatings absorbed 99.7% of all sensor frequencies, but they were not perfect. A lucky scan at the wrong angle could spot them. "How long do we have?" Reyes asked. Voss picked up her tea. "Long enough." Lieutenant Hara was 26 years old. Her grandmother had been present at the signing of the Tribunal Charter 312 years ago. The old woman had been a diplomat, one of the last humans to speak with the Thalassy before humanity went quiet. Hara had grown up on stories about the signing, the black stone chamber, the smell of old paper and ozone. The way the Thalassy never blinked, never moved their faces, never showed any emotion at all. "They thought we were primitive," her grandmother used to say. "They thought we were scared, they thought we would beg." "Did we?" Hara would ask. "No, we smiled, we signed their charter, and then we went home and started building." Hara pulled up the original Tribunal Charter on her console. She had the document memorized, but she needed to see the words. Article 19, Section 4. Extinction certifications require physical confirmation by a representative of the certified species if such representatives exist. She read it 3 times. "Admiral," she said, "they wrote their own loophole." Voss smiled, the kind of smile that lived only on the mouth. "Then we'll give them confirmation." Tactician Kalen did not know he was walking into a trap. He stood on the bridge of the Tribunal flagship Righteous Judgment, watching the tactical display as his armada crossed into the Sol system's outer boundary. 347 ships in standard Tribunal formation, heavy cruisers on the flanks, carriers in the center, command ship at the rear. The system was empty, no human ships, no human colonies, no human anything. Kalen had expected this. The Tribunal had declared humanity extinct. Extinct species did not have fleets, they did not have colonies, they did not have anything except memory and paperwork. He broadcast the standard annexation terms on all frequencies. Former human territories are now under Tribunal administration. Any resistance will be met with immediate force. You have 3 hours to comply. There was no reply. Kalen waited 1 hour, 2 hours. At 2 hours and 58 minutes, his sensor officer reported a problem. "Sir, I'm reading something at the edge of the system. 12 contacts, no drive signatures, no thermal emissions, no identification signals." Kalen frowned. 12 what? "Unknown, sir. They're positioned in a sphere around us." "When did they get there?" Kalen looked at the tactical display. The 12 unknown contacts were arranged in a perfect sphere centered on his armada. He had not seen them move into position. They had simply appeared. "Bring up the visual," he said. The screen showed 12 ships. They were small, smaller than his light cruisers. Their hulls were dark, almost black, with no markings, no running lights, no windows. They looked like ghosts. One of them was broadcasting on a low-frequency channel, a woman's voice, old, calm, tired. "Tribunal Armada, this is Admiral Helena Voss of Earth Defense Command. You have declared humanity extinct. We are here to provide confirmation." Kalen's jaw tick started. Confirmation of what? No reply. The clock showed 0 hours, 0 minutes, 0 seconds remaining on the ultimatum. Commander Reyes had been running this simulation for 18 years. He had run it in his quarters at night on a private terminal that was not connected to any network. He had run it on the ship's tactical computer during long patrols when there was nothing else to do. He had run it in his head while eating breakfast, while walking to the bridge, while trying to fall asleep. He never missed. The Ghost Fleet was positioned in a sphere around the Tribunal Armada. Each Ghost ship locked onto a different Tribunal capital ship, not the small ones, not the escorts, the big ones, the ones that would hurt the most when they were gone. Reyes checked his watch, 8:03 ship time. "Solution ready," he said. Voss picked up her tea. "Send confirmation." The first volley fired at 8:04. 12 mass driver slugs, 14 metric tons each, 21,000 kilometers per second. The slugs crossed the engagement zone in 11 seconds. They did not show up on Tribunal sensors until 3 seconds before impact. 3 seconds was not enough time for evasive maneuvers. 12 capital ships ceased to exist. Kalen stared at the tactical display. Where 12 ships had been, there was now debris, expanding clouds of metal and atmosphere and bodies. The sensor officer was shouting something about kinetic impacts, about impossible velocities, about stealth coatings that should not exist. "Return fire," Kalen shouted. The Tribunal ships fired blind. Their sensors could not find the Ghost ships. The stealth coatings absorbed 99.7% of all sensor frequencies. The remaining 0.3% was not enough to generate a firing solution. The second volley fired at 8:06. 12 more ships. Kalen ordered a scattering maneuver, his ships spread out, trying to break the perfect sphere that surrounded them. It did not matter, the Ghost fleet had already repositioned. The third volley fired at 8:08. 12 more ships. Kalen's jaw tick was constant now, his hands were shaking. He had trained for conventional battles against conventional enemies. He had no doctrine for an enemy he could not see, could not track, and could not outrun. "Where are they?" he demanded. The censor officer shook his head. "I don't know, sir. They're everywhere." The fourth volley fired at 8:10. By 8:22, 96 Tribunal ships had been destroyed. By 8:40, the number reached 144. Kalen ordered a full retreat at 8:50. Of the 347 ships that entered the Sol system, 203 would escape. The rest would be confirmed. Reyes watched them go. He did not smile. He did not cheer. He simply noted the time in the log and turned to Voss. "Armada retreating, ma'am. Do we pursue?" Voss shook her head. "No, we sent the message. Now we wait for them to read it." She recorded a single message, 4 seconds long. Her face filled the screen, gray hair, scarred fingers wrapped around the chipped ceramic mug, cold black tea still steaming. She looked like someone's grandmother who had wandered into the wrong room by accident. She spoke exactly 4 words. "Extinction confirmation complete, awaiting next order." The message transmitted at 8:51. It would arrive in the chamber of extinction 3 hours later. 3 hours later, observer Velsath watched the message for the first time. She wrote nothing. She watched it again. She wrote irony. She watched it a third time. She erased irony and wrote correction. High Arbitrator Vexar had not spoken in 3 hours. He sat at the curved bench, staring at the blank screen where the Armada's telemetry used to be. His 212 previous extinction certifications had been correct. He had never been wrong. He was wrong now. Vexar opened his mouth to speak. He closed it. There was nothing to say. The law was clear. Article 19, Section 4. Humanity had provided confirmation. The tribunal could not try again. The ghost ship had not come to conquer. It had come to correct a clerical error. Velsath looked at Vexar. He had not moved. She wondered if he ever would. The chamber of extinction had not changed in 11,000 years. The black stone walls still carried the claw marks of 40,000 workers who had carved this place over 7 centuries. The air still smelled of old paper, dry ozone, and the faint sweet rot of extinct species. The curved bench still held the representatives of 47 member worlds, arranged in descending tiers of power and age. But something had shifted, something none of them could name. High Arbitrator Vexar had not spoken in 4 hours now. He sat at the center of the bench, his stone-gray face as immobile as ever, his pupil-less white eyes fixed on the blank screen where the Armada's telemetry used to be. His hands, four-fingered and claw-scarred, rested flat on the polished stone before him. He had not moved. The representatives whispered among themselves. They had seen Vexar certify 212 species extinct. They had seen him preside over the dissolution of empires, the redrawing of borders, the quiet erasure of entire civilizations from the galactic record. They had never seen him silent. Observer Velsath watched from the highest row. Her data slate rested on her knee. The word correction still glowed on the screen, unerased. She had not written anything else. She was waiting. 3 hours before the message arrived, Admiral Helena Voss was still on the bridge of the Last Witness. The tactical display showed the Tribunal Armada in full retreat. 203 ships, their drive signatures bright against the dark, burning hard for the edge of the Sol system. The remaining 144 were gone, confirmed. Reyes stood at the tactical station, running the numbers again. He had been running them for 46 minutes, ever since the first volley. "We hit exactly what we aimed for," he said. 12 ships per volley, 8 volleys, no misses. Voss nodded. She was still holding the chipped ceramic mug. The tea inside had gone cold hours ago. She did not heat it. "The Requiem Protocol," Reyes said slowly. "It says 1 ship per extinction vote. 41 votes in favor. We have 12 ships." "We sent 41 slugs," Voss said. "Each slug carries a data packet. Each packet contains the same message." "What message?" Voss set down the mug. She pulled up the recording system and pressed the button. Her face filled the screen, gray hair, scarred fingers, the chipped mug just visible at the edge of the frame. She spoke exactly 4 words. "Extinction confirmation complete, awaiting next order." She stopped the recording and turned to Reyes. "Send that to every tribunal ship that's still running, and send a copy to the Chamber of Extinction. Let them watch it together." Reyes stared at her. "Ma'am, they already declared us extinct. Why are we giving them orders?" Voss picked up her tea because they asked for confirmation and because the law says they have to accept it. The message arrived in the Chamber of Extinction at 11:51 ship time. Velsath watched it on the main screen, the woman's face, the gray hair, the scarred fingers, the chipped mug, the 4 words. She watched it 3 times. The first time she wrote nothing, the second time she wrote irony, the third time she erased it and wrote correction. She looked down at Vexar. He had not moved. The representatives were not whispering anymore. They were silent. 47 species, 23,000 star systems, 11,000 years of uninterrupted authority, and 1 human woman with a chipped mug and a 4-second message. Velsath understood what the others did not. The tribunal had not been defeated by weapons. It had been defeated by paperwork. Article 19, Section 4. The clause Vexar himself had written 11,000 years ago when the tribunal was young and he was younger. Extinction certifications require physical confirmation by a representative of the certified species if such representatives exist. The humans existed, they had always existed. The tribunal had simply stopped looking. Vexar had declared them extinct because he had not seen them for 312 years. He had assumed silence meant absence. He had assumed absence meant death. He had been wrong. And now the law would not let him fix it. 1 certification per species. Those were the rules. He had written them. Velsath wrote a new word on her data slate. Trapped. Vexar finally spoke at 14:52. His voice was dry, old, the voice of a being who had not needed to raise it in centuries. The certification stands. A representative from one of the younger species, a Tur, barely 3,000 years old, rose from her seat. High Arbitrator, humanity just destroyed 144 of our ships. They are not extinct. The certification is false. Vexar turned his head. The movement was slow, deliberate. The certification is procedurally correct, he said. Article 19, Section 4 requires confirmation. Humanity provided confirmation. The vote was 41-6. The certification is final. The Tur representative stared at him. You are saying the law is more important than the truth. I am saying the law is the truth. That is how the tribunal has operated for 11,000 years. And if the law is wrong? Vexar did not answer. Velsath wrote a new word. Crack. The crack widened over the next 3 weeks. The tribunal's member species began to argue, not in private, in the chamber, in front of the observers, in front of the record. The Thalassy, Vexar's own species, held their silence. They had ruled the tribunal for 11,000 years because they had never been wrong. The law was their weapon. The law was their shield. The law was their identity. If the law could be wrong about extinction, the law could be wrong about anything. And if the law could be wrong about anything, the Thalassy had no right to rule. Velsath watched the arguments escalate. She watched alliances shift. She watched species that had been silent for millennia suddenly find their voices. She wrote a single word. Recalibration. On the last witness, Voss was drinking cold tea. The ghost fleet had gone silent again. The stealth coatings were active. The mass drivers were cold. The ships drifted at the edge of the Sol system, watching the empty space where the tribunal armada had been. Reyes came to stand beside her. Do you think they'll come back? Voss shook her head. No, they can't. The law won't let them. The law, Reyes said slowly. You keep saying that. But they wrote the law. They can change it. They can try. Voss set down the mug. But changing the law takes a vote. A vote requires a quorum. A quorum requires the representatives to agree on something. And they don't. No, they don't. Because if they vote to change Article 19, they admit they were wrong about humanity. And if they admit they were wrong about humanity, they have to ask themselves what else they were wrong about. Reyes was quiet for a moment. How long will that take? Voss picked up her tea. Long enough. The first petition arrived at the Chamber of Extinction on day 24. 6 species, the same 6 who had voted against the extinction certification, submitted a formal request for review. They cited Article 19, Section 12, which allowed for a review if new evidence emerged that materially affected the original certification. The new evidence was the message. Extinction confirmation complete, awaiting next order. The Thalassy argued that the message confirmed the certification. The humans had provided confirmation. The law was satisfied. There was nothing to review. The 6 species argued that the message was not confirmation of extinction. It was confirmation of existence. The humans could not confirm anything if they did not exist. Therefore, their existence was the message. Vexar ruled against the review. The 6 species filed an appeal. The appeal went to the full tribunal. The full tribunal could not reach a quorum. Velsath wrote a new word. Gridlock. On day 31, Chief Marcus Webb retired. He had been waiting for the Requiem protocol signal for 31 years. He had spent those years welding hull plates, training crews, maintaining systems that had never been used in combat. He had watched the Ghost Fleet fire its first volley. He had watched the Tribunal run. He had done his job. "Where will you go?" Voss asked him. Webb shrugged. "Back home, see if my garden is still there. It's been 31 years. "I know, probably just weeds now," he smiled. "Weeds are hard to kill like us." He shook Voss's hand. Her scarred fingers gripped his. "Send me a message if you need me again," he said. "I won't need you again," Voss said. "The law is on our side now." Webb laughed. "The law? The same law that declared us dead." "The same law," Voss agreed, "but now we're holding the pen." On day 42, the tribunal reached a quorum. The vote on the appeal was 41-6. The same vote as the extinction certification. This time, the 41 voted against the appeal. They did not want to review the evidence. They did not want to admit they had been wrong. They wanted the law to stay the same, even if the law was a lie. Vexar announced the result. "The certification stands. Humanity remains extinct. The matter is closed." The Tur representative stood again. "You are wrong," she said. "The law is wrong. You are wrong." Vexar did not answer. Velsath wrote a word she had never written before. End. But it was not the end. The 6 species, the same 6 who had voted no, withdrew from the tribunal the next day. They issued a joint statement. It was short, 4 sentences. The tribunal declared humanity extinct. Humanity proved otherwise. The tribunal refused to correct the record. "We will not participate in a lie." Velsath read the statement 3 times. She wrote a single word. "Beginning." On the last witness, Voss was drinking tea when the news arrived. The 6 species had withdrawn. They were forming a new coalition. They had invited humanity to send a representative. Voss set down the mug. "Raise," she said. "Wake Hara." Lieutenant Hara came to the bridge. Her grandmother's ship log was still open on her console. The old woman's words, written 312 years ago, glowed on the screen. "They think we are primitives. They think we are scared. They think we will beg. We will not. We will wait." Hara looked at Voss. "Ma'am." Voss pointed at the screen. "Your grandmother was right. We waited. Now they're asking us to speak. What do I say?" Voss picked up her tea. "Tell them the truth. The tribunal declared us extinct. We provided confirmation. The law is satisfied. We have no further business with them." "And the new coalition?" Voss smiled, the smile that lived only in the mouth. "Tell them we'll bring tea." The chamber of extinction was empty now. The representatives had gone. The observers had gone. The black stone walls still carried the claw marks of 40,000 workers. The air still smelled of old paper, dry ozone, and the faint sweet rot of extinct species. But the species in the air had changed. High Arbitrator Vexar sat alone at the curved bench. His stone-gray face was still immobile. His pupil-less white eyes still stared at the blank screen where the Armada's telemetry used to be. He had not moved in 3 days. Observer Velsath remained in the highest row. She had not left. She had watched the tribunal fall apart. She had watched the 6 species walk out. She had watched Vexar's silence stretch into something that was no longer silence. It was defeat. She wrote a final word on her data slate. "Correction." She looked at the word. She looked at Vexar. She erased it. She wrote nothing else. The last witness drifted at the edge of the Sol system. The chipped ceramic mug sat on the arm of Voss's chair. The tea inside was cold. It had been cold for days. She did not heat it. Reyes stood at the tactical station. The display showed nothing. No tribunal ships, no new coalitions, no threats. "Ma'am," he said, "what do we do now?" Voss picked up the mug. "We wait." "For what?" She looked at the mugs, the blue glaze worn thin on the rim. The chip her late husband had put in it 23 years ago when he had dropped it on the kitchen floor. She had kept it because he had left. She had kept it because he was gone. She had kept it because some things were worth keeping, even when they were broken. "Someone will come," she said. "Someone always comes, and when they do, we'll be here, drinking tea, waiting to provide confirmation." Reyes was quiet for a long moment. "The tribunal declared us extinct," he said slowly. "They voted 41-6. They sent an armada. They gave us 3 hours to comply. And we're still here." Voss set down the mug. "We were always here. They just stopped looking." The message arrived on day 67. It was not from the tribunal. The tribunal had stopped functioning. The Thalassy had withdrawn to their home world. The remaining 41 species were arguing about who would lead. The message was from the new coalition, the 6 species who had voted no, the 6 who had walked out. They asked one question. "What do you want?" Voss recorded a reply, 4 seconds, 4 words. "Nothing from you." The coalition sent another message. "Then why did you fight?" Voss recorded another reply, 4 seconds, 4 words. "You asked for confirmation." The coalition sent a third message. "We did not ask, the tribunal asked." Voss did not reply. She picked up her tea, she drank it, cold, bitter, perfect. Reyes looked at her. Ma'am, the difference between us and them, Voss said, is that they need an answer. We don't, we already know who we are. Velsath left the Chamber of Extinction on day 70. She walked down the black stone steps, past the empty benches, past the claw-marked walls, past the smell of extinct species that was no longer just a smell. It was a warning. She stopped at the entrance. She looked back. High Arbitrator Vexar still sat at the curved bench. He had not moved. She wondered if he ever would. She wrote a final word on her data slate, not for the record, for herself. The ghost ship did not come to conquer. It came to correct a clerical error. She erased it. She walked out. On the last witness, Voss was asleep in her chair. The chipped ceramic mug rested on her knee. Her scarred fingers were curled around it, even in sleep. The tea inside had long since gone cold. Reyes covered her with a blanket. He looked at the mugs, 23 years old, a wedding gift from a dead husband, a chip from a dropped accident, a joke that had turned into a memory that had turned into a weapon. He understood now. The mug was not a thing, it was a receipt, a proof, a record of something that had happened and could not be undone. Like the message, like the volleys, like the law. Some things once done stayed done. Later that night, Hara found Reyes standing at the observation window. The stars were steady, the ghost fleet's stealth coatings made them invisible against the dark, but Hara knew where they were, she had helped build them. Reyes, she said, what are you thinking? He didn't turn around. I'm thinking about what happens next. The tribunal is broken. The coalition is asking us to lead, and we're just sitting here, drinking tea. Hara came to stand beside him. That's what we do, she said. We wait, we drink tea, and when someone makes a mistake, we correct it. That's not a strategy. It's been working for 300 years. Reyes is quiet for a long time. Then he laughed. I guess that's the difference, he said. They build empires, we build patience. Hara nodded. And patience, she said, is the only weapon that never runs out of ammunition. The tribunal never recovered. The Thalassy retreated to their home world. The remaining 41 species argued for years about who would lead. No one could agree. No one could vote. No one could certify anything. The Chamber of Extinction sat empty. The smell of extinct species faded. The ozone smell faded. The old paper smell faded. What remained was just stone, black stone, claw marks, silence. Velsath visited one more time, a year later. She stood in the highest row. She looked down at the curved bench where Vexar had sat. The bench was empty. He had finally moved. No one knew where. She wrote a single word on her data slate. Corrected. She erased it. She left. On the last witness, Voss was not asleep. She was awake. She was drinking tea. The mug was in her hand. The tea was cold. It was always cold. Reyes came to the bridge. Ma'am, the coalition is asking again. They want to know if we'll send a representative. Voss shook her head. No, they're offering us a seat, a vote, a voice. We already have a voice. Voss held up the mug. This is our voice, cold tea and 4-second messages. That's who we are. Reyes stared at her. You're turning down power. I'm turning down their kind of power. She set down the mug. The tribunal ruled by declaring things. We rule by proving things. There's a difference. What difference? Voss stood up. She walked to the observation window. The stars were steady. They declared us extinct. We proved we weren't. They declared the law was truth. We proved the truth was bigger than the law. They declared themselves eternal. We proved nothing is eternal except patience. She turned back to Reyes. That's the difference. They need to be right. We just need to be here. The coalition sent one more message. What do you want us to tell the galaxy? Voss recorded a reply. 4 seconds, 4 words. Tell them we're waiting. The coalition sent a final message. Waiting for what? Voss did not reply. She picked up her tea. She drank it. Cold, bitter, perfect. The tribunal had declared humanity extinct. Humanity had provided confirmation. One of these things was still here. The other was still trying to understand what happened.